I am Velina Hasu Houston, and I'm the playwright of Tea. When I first wrote Tea, I had no idea that 3.5 decades later it would still be produced. And also, I didn't think at the time that it would have a continuous production life from the time that I wrote it. Because my original instincts were the instincts of many playwrights, which is that I was very curious about social political things that were going on around me that related to my own personal journey. And I was very interested in immigration at that time, which is fascinating to me because now it's become an even more, talked about, topic. Whereas when my mother immigrated from Japan, it was as if it was a kind of lesser state of being. A forgivable state of being, and she had a very tough time acculturating to life in Kansas then. And so with Tea, I wanted to tell her story. I think that the play speaks to many people because I think whether people are Japanese immigrants or Honduran immigrants, they all relate to the notion of being fish out of water and trying to find a way to fit in into the fabric of US society. I think that with Tea, it was one of the first opportunities to talk about the immigration experience from the perspective of immigrants of color. I think that there had been plays written about Irish immigrants and British immigrants, you name it, but there hadn't been a lot of plays that explored immigrants of color, particularly in the 20th and 21st centuries. And so in writing Tea, I did enter this sort of territory that had not really been explored before. And mind you, when I first wrote the play, there were a lot of people in society that weren't ready to hear that story, didn't want to hear that story. When I first wrote Tea, and it was first being produced around the country, there were a variety of responses. On one side, I had a lot of Asian Americans and other people of color who were thankful that I had explored their experience in this country. That was also true of immigrants, and immigrants from all backgrounds. I remember speaking with some immigrants from Germany who were Caucasian, and they were moved by the immigrant story too because theirs had been a similar type of journey, just different. The feeling that I get for providing work for Asian American actors over so many decades is just joy, because I feel that so many of these actors, and in fact, in general, actors of color, they don't get to play meaningful roles. And in Tea, there are 5 roles for women that allow them to explore, many different dimensions of the human existence. So they're meaningful roles. I hope that audiences today, particularly young people, will come to see a play like Tea because I think that they'll find that it's still so relevant to the notions of immigration and learning to survive in an environment that is unfamiliar to them. And also I think it can illuminate just the pathways that immigrants struggle with. But beyond just the story of immigration, I think that Tea really asks us to look inside of ourselves and find our own strength that allows us to move forward. And I think that speaks to a lot of different populations. I feel that we're at least starting that journey where plays that are not out of another country's canon can become American classics and speak to the work that we're doing here and that we have yet to do here.